Know this about the problems with an unstable mind. Today I'm addressing the topic of having an unstable mind. I've been a clinical psychologist for 8 years, and this is what I know. Today I want to take you in on a closer look at the difficulties there can be with having an unstable mind. In other videos, I talk about how to get your mind from unstable to stable and what it takes. In this video, I want to outline some of the problems that can come with having an unstable mind. I hope to make you understand how difficult life can be when having an unstable mind and how important it is to address it as one of the first things in therapy. Let's start with an example that I always think shows the problems of an unstable mind quite well. I call it the airport example. Imagine that you've just been on a very long flight. You didn't manage to get any sleep. The food was horrible, so you barely ate. You had a screaming baby in the neighbor's seat and a toddler with their iPad on full sound. So you didn't get to relax at all. And the only thing you did the last 12 hours was to sit on your butt. If I met up with you in the airport after your arrival, what would I see? How would you be feeling? A bit unstable? A bit emotionally imbalanced? I would think so. If you're normal, like most people, this is how you would react. As I like to talk about in other videos, there are 4 basics for us to be okay. Sleep, eat, rest, and do. If we're not meeting our basic needs, our minds will become unstable. Here are some of the most common difficulties and consequences with an unstable mind. When we have an unstable mind, we'll quickly have problems with our emotional balance. When we're in emotional turmoil or out of emotional balance, that causes problems with our decision making or behavior in relationships and our general ability to cope. If there's something wrong with the basics, there'll be something wrong with the rest. Maybe you would like to not deal with the basics. Maybe you're thinking, hey, what difference does it make? Can't we just override the basics and pull ourselves together at will? The short answer is no. We would want to, but we likely can't. But isn't it likely that we can function with an unstable mind? Can't we just ignore it and move on? Again, the answer is no, and this is why. Having an unstable mind means that we'll be affected by emotions or be out of contact with emotions. Being unstable makes us sensitive. I don't know if I like that word, but hear me out. If we're having an unstable mind, then our normal balancing is out of order. This can lead to emotional imbalance, where we either spill out with emotion or shut them down completely. Both, either spilling over and not feeling at all, will have a significant impact on why we function so poorly when our mind is unstable. When you have a stable mind, then you're more likely to have emotional balance. This helps you adjust your behavior and responses. Being too affected by your emotions often lead to passive action, not doing anything at all, or extreme action, doing too much or overreacting. Emotional imbalance doesn't mean only that you'll have too much emotion, it can also mean that you'll have too little. It just means out of balance. So, what will we likely see in a client with emotional imbalance? Again, think of the airport example. Underslept, underfed, unrested, and inactive, completely out of it emotionally. What would your behaviors be? Would they be different than normal? Would you be unwillingly very reactive or shut down your emotions? When we're acting during emotional imbalance, we lose our inner compass of balanced behavior or we cannot access it. When in an emotional imbalance, we tend to either be very passive or very reactive. We can either isolate ourselves, run away from our problems, or act in a rash way that we might regret later. Such behaviors generally hinder us in dealing with our problems in a useful and efficient way. Avoiding dealing with something or having an instant reaction are examples of behaviors we tend to have when we're guided by high emotion. Having high emotion guide our behavior can cause problems both for our decision making, our relationships, and our general coping with life things. When we just react, we don't really get to test out what works and learn from it, as that our reactions weren't calculated, but instead just hot instant reactions colored by overwhelming emotion. Imagine yourself in the airport example. What would emotional imbalance make you do? You might find yourself acting like a toddler, screaming, crying, or sulking. You might yell at your partner for walking too slow or being too nice to the taxi driver, letting him cheat you. If you open up your email messages, you might end up saying yes to things you don't want or no to things you ought to have said yes to if you hadn't been so out of it. Being out of it emotionally or emotionally imbalanced can make you change your normal behaviors. This in some can be that they end up avoiding too much and then are not able to do some of the things that they would like to do or can normally do fine. Avoiding or not doing something can be one of the normal reactions I see when a client is having an unstable mind. That they end up underdoing or over-controlling due to emotional imbalance. This is both a problem for self-worth maintenance and can be a cause for anxiety development in the long run. I often see anxiety development when a client, due to a period of emotional imbalance, has been avoiding something. This can be conflict, socializing, or specific tasks or situations. As the brain tries to learn from our behaviors, it will tend to couple the thing or situation with a fear response. Avoiding behaviors or situations can lead to either developing anxiety for something or maintain anxiety for it. Fears are often based on beliefs or hypotheses about something being too hard, unsafe, or dangerous. By avoiding, we're then not able to test the hypothesis or belief we hold and will maintain the current belief or anxiety. Being in emotional imbalance can make it too difficult to be brave or challenge our beliefs. Being unstable can make it feel impossible due to high emotion to do what we need in order to reverse or work on anxiety. We might be able to hold the rational of, if we don't try, how will we know? Maybe we are able to do the thing, or if we want to be able to do something, we need to start somewhere. But we feel unable to start doing or overcoming the avoidance due to high emotions. Other than being too passive, not doing or avoiding due to emotional imbalance, I often see that clients will act on an impulse or react with high emotion. I see that in the form of overcompensation or overdoing things or overreacting. Neither being too passive nor too reactive makes decision making or general life coping easier. We can, in the example of anger, feel like we want to punish or hurt another person, and if we give into this, we might suffer the consequence of feeling shameful or regret after, or we might complicate our relationship with the other person. It differs in different people how they react to emotional imbalance. Some will also react too little to a conflict due to fear emotion, making them be too sweet or pleasing towards someone who just hurt or disrespected them. This will both complicate the relation, but especially their relationship with themselves. Behaviors seen with too high emotions can, as the example above shows, make our life a bit difficult. On the other hand, not accessing our emotions at all will have other complications. Not feeling will lead us to be too logical or too rational and not take into account how something affects us or our feelings or what we need in order to thrive. Complex situations often need us to both listen to how we feel and our logics. Only asking ourselves if we have the time or ability to do a thing and leaving out if we feel like it can hurt our self-worth in the long run. In some of my clients, I see that when they're in emotional imbalance, they end up being too pleasing towards others, not respecting their own boundaries and needs at all. They don't access their emotions and will just say yes and do on automatic pilot. They end up shutting down their emotions when in emotional balance, making it such that they don't know how they feel, which makes them struggle in decision making overall, in their relationships, and in life coping. This often results in suffering and other psychological symptoms if they keep it up. Decision making with accessing our emotions without addressing how you feel will often lead you to be mistreating yourself in one way or another. Sometimes we need to say no based on how we feel or take a break. Sometimes we need to give in to what we feel like or our urges. This is to signal to ourselves that we have value and are worth respecting, that what we want or feel like matters. If we are only guided by facts or logics, such as do I have the time, would it be smart to do so, then we'll often end up saying yes or doing the task. But sometimes we need to say no to tasks if our feelings aren't in it. If not, we'll end up losing touch with ourselves and our ability to feel what we want. The same can be said for enjoyment and loss-based activities. If we just rely on the logics or facts, such as do we have the time or does it cost money or energy, then we might end up rejecting doing something that we really wanted or that was really fun. Being able to blend logics and emotions is key in decision making, having relationships, and managing our life overall. If the balance is off, too much or too little, we end up suffering. If we live without accessing our emotions, we might end up pressuring ourselves too much. This can for some make them take on too large tasks. Even though others might be able to walk up in a high altitude or hold a speech in front of thousands, it might be that this is too much for you at the moment. Maybe you need to ease into large tasks or skip them. If you don't address your emotions and just stick with the logics and the rationale that there is no likely risk of danger, you might end up pressuring yourself too much. This can in some cases lead to emotional flooding or self-traumatization and leave us not more brave or successful, but more scared and sad. If we send ourselves into too big tasks, we'll let our mind and body know that we cannot be trusted. I often see this with my clients, that they give themselves too big tasks or pressure themselves to go into a situation where their discomfort is too big. They do so based on their logic mind that others can do it and an inner stern parent voice of, come on, it's not that difficult. The results are often that they suffer and don't feel better for it. We can also be too rational in our relationships and skip our emotions too much. Not using our emotions to guide us in dealing with our relationships and conflicts can lead us to let ourselves or others down and make it so that we don't get what we need or want. Being emotionally imbalanced might lead us to straining ourselves too much in a relationship by us being too nice or pleasing. Not accessing our true feelings and saying no and yes accordingly will also have the effect in our relationship that the other person can get a feeling that we're not genuinely there or not present or that they cannot feel us. I hope that I have in this video sort of outlined some of the problems that can come when the mind is unstable. A quick summary could be that we don't function very well when our mind is unstable. This is, as I hopefully showed with the airport example, not because you're not normal, broken, or malfunctioning, but something that happens when your mind is unstable. Trying to control this reaction or trying to control your behavior reactions while being unstable is difficult, if not impossible. It therefore makes sense to attend to stabilizing the mind before criticizing our behaviors or trying to pull ourselves together. Come to one of my other videos to look into what it takes to stabilize the mind. I think this was all we had time for. What was your takeaway from today's video? As always, feel free to take away the information you can use, if any, and leave the rest. Hopefully you found that today's topic made sense and I didn't waste your time. Please subscribe and like this video so my channel can grow. Take care and see you for the next one.